One of the things that I just wanted to kind of tag on to what Tara said, and this is really one of the major impetuses as to why we're here today, is because after the murder of George Floyd, we took a very firm look at ourselves as a company and realized that our spending with Black-owned businesses just was nowhere near where we wanted it to be. And so we set a very aggressive target to, within 2 years, increase it tenfold. So increase our spend with Black-owned businesses by 10x. And we were actually successful at reaching 13 times spend at the end of last year. And while I appreciate the applause, the main reason why we were able to do that is because of dynamic leaders who had been building companies for years and years, and we are pleased to have 3 of those leaders here with us today. So one of the things that I want to do is just really give each of our panelists the opportunity to talk a little bit about themselves, but I'm going to frame it with this question. I'm very curious, and we've had a lot of prep conversations over the last month or so on what conscious capitalism and leadership means to each of you and how that has impacted your individual stories. And we're going to start off with Justin.
Cool. Thanks, Terrell, and thanks, Tara, for that great introduction. We were giving Terrell a hard time. He did hit us with this 30-year-old going downhill thing. I was looking at him like, what are you talking about, bro? Exactly. I'm about to turn 50 next year, so certainly hitting a different milestone. Maybe a little bit of context would be helpful. So I founded and run a company called BCforward. It's 25 years old, so we celebrated our 25-year anniversary this year, which is pretty exciting for us. It's about a $600 million company operating here in the United States, Canada, throughout the Caribbean, and India. So just a little bit of context. Something about myself that I think is important kind of when I talk about my journey is grew up in New York. My parents were both social workers. And I know my dad told me one time about this story. He said he worked for the YMCA, and he said he had somebody that sat on his board. He talked about they had a tree that fell down in their parking lot, and he said he called one of the board members who had a landscaping company, and he said, Mr. Charles, we had a tree fall down. Can you help me get the tree out of our parking lot? And this guy had been very generous to the Y throughout the years, and he said, absolutely not. He said, you need to call the office, schedule an appointment, someone will come out here, they'll give you a quote. And he was completely surprised by it. And he said, I don't do trees for free. And, he said, the reason I can do so much for the YMCA and so much for your youth programs is because I run a profitable business, and that profitable business allows me to feed back into the community. So it always really stuck with me, this idea of, I can't do trees for free. I need to build a business that gives me the resources to feed back into my family and my community in really meaningful ways. Also, something that's important is context in terms of the state of Black business. And I took down some stats on this. There are only 5 Black businesses in the country that are over $1 billion in annual revenue. There are 36 Black businesses in the country that are over $100 million in annual revenue. There are 64 Black businesses that are over 50. And on the Black Enterprise 100 list, the 100th largest company is doing $4.7 million in annual revenue. That's pretty small, when you think about all the businesses that are out there that are thriving. We as Black businesses, we don't have a lot of shots on goal. We have an opportunity, and we have to capitalize on these opportunities that we have in front of us. Something else I think back on is there was a gentleman who was a mentor of mine, and the Amazon CEO talked about, the Whole Foods CEO talked about the importance of mentors. There was a gentleman, Bill Mays. I was given one of my first presentations, and as a salesperson when I was starting my business, and Bill Mays, very successful entrepreneur in Indianapolis, he literally fell asleep while I was giving the presentation. I was like, oh, that didn't go well. He was very well respected. His people respected him. Nobody said anything. This guy slept through every single word that I said. I went home, told my wife, well, got to figure something else out. The next day, I got a call from his people and said, Bill Mays wants to move forward. He bought something from me that I knew he didn't need. He gave me a chance that I probably didn't deserve, right? And that stuck with me. And Bill was great at doing that. He passed away a few years ago. But this idea of giving folks chances that they don't deserve. And at BCforward, we really encourage our leadership to get involved in the community. And I think those points of context are just kind of something that has shaped my journey as an owner and as an entrepreneur.
Thank you, Justin. And I want to switch over to Ray. Tell us a little bit.
A little bit about my journey. First of all, thank you, Terrell. Thank you, Tara, for the wonderful introduction, and thank you guys for having me. I'm going to start out near term, and then I'll go back. When I was asked to come here and sit on this panel, I was excited and I accepted the invitation. However, my intentions were to show up Wednesday night. And over the last month and a half, as I read through the information on conscious capitalism and read through the core tenets, it resonated with me, because those are some of the same tenets that I built my company on. Those are some of the same tenets that I grew up on down in South Central Louisiana. My background is I'm Creole, so you may hear a little twang in my voice. I could speak some French if you'd like, but I won't go there. But growing up in Southwest Louisiana, we learned how to work. And one of the things my grandfather always taught me was failure is not an option. So after high school, I decided to join the military. I'm an avid tennis player, and I wanted a full ride scholarship to LSU, and they only offered me a partial scholarship, and I didn't accept it. Joined the military, and a few years later, I got accepted into the Wisconsin Military Academy, and that was my first introduction to what real leadership was about. There were three things that we were taught in military academy. Know your people, because one day you may have to go to war with them. The only way to know your people is for your people to know you. And in order to be a good leader, first you have to be a good follower. That's always stuck with me. But fast forward, the rest of my journey is I'm big on family. My last 7 years in corporate America, I traveled 2 weeks a month for 7 years. Missed baseball games, missed recitals, you name it. So when I got ready to start the company, I met with a few guys that I'd worked with before, and we're all technologists and product design engineers, so we're just nerds at heart. But after I spoke with those guys, we all had one thing in common. We want to continue doing it, but most importantly, we want to have some work-life balance. We need our families. So I started RLA Engineering with the tenets of creating an environment so we could deliver those technology solutions that just drive us every day, but also allow enough flexibility so guys didn't have to miss their recitals anymore or miss their softball games or whatever it was. So that was the genesis of RLA, and hence the name of my company are my kids' initials, Raymond, Lexi, and Anna. So we did that, and we started the company. My number one thing is I love empowering people, and I'll say this as I close with this. I don't know, about 25, 30 years ago, I was with Alan Bradley, and a book back then called Who Moved My Cheese? You guys may have heard about it. That's how long it's been around. It's an awesome metaphor, and that's always stuck with me. Never become complacent with where you are. Always go out and look for that new cheese. So that's what I'd take into my organization. I want to empower my leaders, especially my executive team, and never become complacent. And here we are today, 13 years later. We're doing about $20 million in revenue. We were excited about what tomorrow brings and look forward to engaging in this conversation. So thanks for having me.
No problem. Thank you, Ray. Thank you. And also just another interesting fact about Ray is that he is an HP alum. So definitely appreciate that long-standing relationship. And last but certainly not least, I want to turn the floor over to Aaron to tell us a little bit about himself.
You guys have taken all the lines. You've left me with nothing. I actually wasn't meant to be here. My sister, who's my co-founder and business partner, was actually meant to be on stage. So I actually want to shout her out and thank her for not coming, because now I'm. It's fantastic. It's great. And on that note, I'm Aaron Edwards, CEO of a digital creative agency called the Charles Group. Charles is named after my great-grandfather, Charles Alfred Seeley. He was a boatwright in the West Indies and brought our family over from the West Indies to the UK. I started thinking about purpose and this idea of a higher level of purpose. And everything kind of has gone back to family. And it's interesting listening to your stories, because it seems that family and that guidance has been a big provider of motivation, of all the different things that make our personalities today. And I think about my family and I think about my purpose and I say, for me, it's around generational legacy, right? We named the company after our great-grandfather. Why? Could have named it after. We would have come up with any different name, but we named it after our great-grandfather. And I think there's a powerful thing in this idea of really having people that have influenced your life in such a dramatic way. They brought our family over. My mum came over from St. Kitts when she was 17. My dad moved from Jamaica when he was 6 years old to the UK, from Manchester originally. And, my parents were very, how can I put this, typical Caribbean parents, right? High expectations. They prided themselves on how you looked, how you carried yourself. I never forget going to school and my dad would say, "Iran, you clean them shoes? Iran, you wash your shirt?" And I'm thinking, bloody hell, this guy is just on me constantly, every day. He just doesn't leave me alone. But he was giving me a lesson. He really was. He was teaching me the idea of having pride. The pride in my appearance, the way I carry myself, the way I speak, the way I think. And it's those things that really, when I think about my purpose and I think about the longevity of what I want for my business and for my people and all of those things, it's thinking through all of those values that were instilled from my family, from my dad, from my mom, my grandparents, and all of those interactions. So I think about integrity, I think about transparency, and I think about empathy. Those are the three things, the core values of why we started what we did. My background is finance. I was a pure play capitalist. I was the guy who watched Wall Street, the film, on repeat. Greed is good. Greed is good. Let's keep making money. And I worked for Barclays, an investment bank, and realized very quickly, greed is bad. Greed is really, really bad. That business chewed me up and spat me out. And it was the best thing I could have done, because I think working in a machine, in a corporate hostile environment such as investment banking, really gave me a completely new perspective on how I think about the business I want to build and the people that I want to have around me. And so my company is very much really focused on how do we break that system? How do we think about, empowering our people, as you were talking about? How do we focus on the individual? Right? How do we give people who don't typically have a voice? So when we started the business, and it still is today, it's very flat, right? There isn't a hierarchical, it's not a top-down structure. I want to hear from my interns. I want to hear from, my office workers, my back office folks. I want to hear from everyone inside of the organization, because ultimately that's going to help inform how we move forward and ultimately give everybody a platform for conversation, which ultimately I think leads into equality and representation. So.
Thank you, Aaron. And one of the things that I think is really, really, round of applause. We love the positive affirmation. One of the things that I find to be really fascinating is that the three of you, even though you come from different backgrounds, different parts of the country, different parts of the world, one of the central themes that each of you struck on is the importance of family and the reason why you're building your businesses and the reason why they started. And so that really strikes a chord with me, because I know many of the folks that are gathered here are dealing with a major challenge now, which is how do you balance doing that equitable work, building those equitable movements, while still managing and facilitating a profit as a CEO. So I want to pose that question. How have you, each of you, been successful at balancing those two dynamics in this current environment?
Well, I'll jump in. I think, it sounds like for us all, certainly we had influences in our life that were, driven by, family members that we had. I know I certainly did. And, I think there was always an expectation that you were going to kind of conduct yourself in an appropriate way, right? And I think for a lot of times, the Black community just had to do that, right? When you think back to kind of, during civil rights and how, when, you saw Black leaders, they were always suit and tie, and just how you presented and who was going to represent the movement. And, I think a lot of that is just pushed down to, us as Black people now by, it certainly was by my parents. I think there was just, hey, you're going to represent our family, and, you're going to hold yourself in a certain way, and you're going to treat people a certain way. And, that's just been tremendously, important to me, and it's certainly resonating in terms of how I lead, and it certainly resonates in terms of what my expectations are of the people that work for me, work for me in my organization.
Very similar. I'll build on the theme of growing up in the Black community. Do good by people. If you treat people well, the rest is going to take care of itself. I believe in passion. I'm passionate about what I do. And I tell my senior team, if you don't have the passion about it, we're not going to do it. If we don't have passion, let's close shop. And I also believe, and this is, again, the part of the conscious capitalism tenets that resonate with me so much, is do the right thing and the profits are going to come. And I firmly believe that, and I try to instill that in my kids now. Focus on what you're passionate about, and then we'll transition. Your passion will turn into money and turn into profits, and you'll do well. So for me, it's about fostering an environment, continuing to foster an environment of doing right by your employees, their families, and your customers.
Yeah, I like to be contrarian. I've struggled with this. As a finance person, you're always looking at cost, right? You're always looking at ways to maximize margin expansion, right? And it's tough when you start to draw the equations and work out the strategy, and you always end up getting to the same resolution when you have an idea about something that you think is going to be good, which is, shit, this isn't going to make any money. It's not going to work. And I think when you stop doing that and calculating and actually just do, you'll find that there were so many things that you missed in your obsession of thinking you had it all figured out. Because ultimately, it's about the people around you and all of their thoughts and their creativity that makes what they feel good about an impact on whatever it is that you're doing that's good. So I'll give an example. We came up with a program called the Family First Initiative. I'm a young parent, I've got 2 children, 3 and 8 years old. And, we noticed that a lot of the working mums in our company were really struggling to balance the work, the life, the picking up the kids. As a parent myself, it's the same thing. I have a call at 8:30 every single morning, but it's at the exact same time of drop-off. So how am I going to do this call, and how am I going to do drop-off? And so as we started to think through that, it just became obvious to us that for those working mums who are struggling and balancing, we need to find a way to pay them money so that they can have the care, that they can have somebody that they can lean on, that they're not going to be stressing about having to pay the bills towards, daycare or whatever it is. So it's called the Family First Initiative, and we contribute $8,000 per year to helping parents and working parents with, childcare. $8,000 is quite a lot of money per person. You think we scale that over a lot of people, that's a crazy amount of money. But then we started working it backwards and saying, well, actually, these people would have left. These people would have gone. So actually, how much have we saved by keeping these people and retaining them through these types of programs? And when you start to do that math, it's like, oh, actually, this is great. And so, I just go back to the point I was making before, which is, I don't think you can try to think about doing good and then have all of the, ideas behind what you're going to do and how you're going to make money. I think you just have to go out and do it. And as it becomes organic, there will be benefits that you didn't even realize that could come from those things that you're putting in place.
Awesome. And so I think with the remaining time that we have, I want to build on that a little bit further. And this is something that the four of us have been able to talk about over the last few weeks, is in this current environment that we're in right now in the United States, in particular, the fact of the matter that, similar to the HP story, in the wake of the murder of George Floyd, significant targets were set to engage Black-owned businesses. Now a lot of folks, and I know that there are people in the room that are probably having the same question, it's kind of, where do we go from here? How do we continue to maintain a focus on diversity, equity, and inclusion in an environment where it's a bit controversial? So one of the things that I wanted to give you all the opportunity to share is just some of the challenges or opportunities that you see that you would share out with this group around how to continue to maintain and champion diversity, equity, and inclusion, whether that be from a supplier diversity perspective, whether that be from an internal personnel perspective. Just in general, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, there's so much to unpack there. I mean, you could have a day-long conversation just about this, right? But I think one thing to think about is a lot of times most Black businesses are bootstrapped, right? I know I bootstrap my business, so when you think about the largest organizations out there, most of the time they're built with somebody else's money, right? There's private equity, there's all types of investors kind of in and around it. But, I think sometimes just the way we come up and the people that are in, who are our influences, it's pretty simple math. Hey, you need to make more than you spend, and that's what you have to reinvest. And that's kind of what our mentality is, right? So, I think this idea of how do you continue to try to scale these businesses so that they're sustainable over the long haul, this whole idea of kind of access to information. The gentleman up here talked about the importance of networks, right? And having those mentors. Just sometimes you just don't know what you don't know, right? So having those people around you that are feeding into you, having access to capital so that you can sustain a business over the long haul and kind of deal with some ups and downs that happen, in all business cycles, I think is just tremendously important as you kind of think about, where we're at right now, some of the challenges that we're under. We're probably going to go into some economic challenges here over the course of the next several years. And, those are just things that, I think are on the minds of certainly myself and I know other Black business owners.
I think to answer that, I'd draw on the networking opportunities. For us, we've joined several associations. Through these procurement associations of the Northwest, the Global Association for Procurement across the country, as we join these associations, we become more and more connected with other companies. Fortune 100 companies who want to do business. They may not have quotas established, but they want to do more business. And what I've learned is that one pager is pretty damn powerful. Be able to tell your story. What value can you offer to my company? And if you can share that story, and I think I heard someone say yesterday with the eyebrow, if you see this, you've not done it well. If that eyebrow goes up, you've raised some curiosity. So my name is Burney, and if you have any ideas, concepts, please see me afterwards in the hall. But the communication and connection, I think that's the main thing that keeps us going. You're going to run into, the 80-20 rule. 80% of the time, you'll probably get told, come back next year. But the 20% is where you invest your time and your resources. And that's how we focus. We don't take it personal, but we stay connected, and we just continue moving forward with our strategy, where we want to target, and failure is not an option.
Yeah, I'm struggling with this one. I think we see a lot of challenges. So my business is in the marketing, advertising arena, and I won't name them, although I should, but I won't name them. And a very big alcoholic beverage brand. There's only a few of them, so you'll know which one. And, we came in through the Supplier diversity network. And at first we were like, this is amazing, wow. We've been around for 12 years. We've got all these brand names. We work on, do all this amazing stuff. We never really thought of ourselves as a Black agency or Black-owned business. We didn't even have the bloody certification. We didn't even know what it was. So we get into this huge holdco, and they say, we love you. We'd love for you to present. And so we're excited, and we're presenting all this work. And they say, wow, this is amazing. We want to work with you guys. And then we get introduced to the brand managers, and then we get introduced to CMOs. And before we know it, we've spent 2 months meeting and talking to all of these different people inside this organization. And at the end of it, nothing transpired. And I was like, wait, if they're telling us all this work is great and they love what we do, why are we not seeing any opportunities? And so I reached out to the procurement team, and they said, oh, no, we do have something for you. It's for the Hispanic market. Hispanic market? I know nothing about the Hispanic market. I don't even know anything about the multicultural space. I've never done that work. But immediately, I'm put into this box of, you are Black, so you must know what Black marketing is. I couldn't tell you the first thing about it. And unfortunately, I think this is the challenge that I see in this space, is people being put in boxes. Yes. The judgments being made about the capability before you've even spoken. And this is the challenge that we face on a daily basis. It's one of the reasons why I left the UK, because I felt like there was absolutely no way I could do the business I'm doing now if I'd have gone and tried to do that in an old, traditional, institutionalized place where racism is so deep, you don't even realize it's happening. And I came to America and I experienced racism firsthand. I was like, well, hey, this is great. At least I know where I stand. Fantastic. Okay. Not allowed in here? No problem. Got you. So, that goes all to say, I think it's really important to not judge a book by its cover. And I think, so many folks, we're all preconditioned. I have the same problem. I meet Black people who I want to hire. I want to bring you in. I want to hire you. But I still have sometimes a preconceived notion because they don't have the qualifications, or I don't know if they're client-facing enough. And so you have to really break that down and really think about who it is and why it is that you're hiring these people, and give them a chance, not because they need a handout or that they need to be gifted it, because pretty sure they didn't get there through gifts their entire lives. You just need to open your eyes to see them for who they are and not for the color of their skin.
Wow. I think that you'd be hard to find a better way to end this panel than the thoughts you just shared, Aaron. So one of the things that I want to do just to close out is to, again, thank the panelists today who have come. Definitely Justin, Ray, Aaron, HP is appreciative of all the energy and work that you've done building your businesses, because you all have produced immense value for us as partners. So thank you for that work. Thank you.